Welcome to Think Pride. I am Kyriakos Gold, and tonight we're celebrating all the colors of the rainbow. How long have you been a showgirl?
35 years now.
What period was the easiest?
I must admit I had a tremendous amount of support, like in terms of guidance, teaching-wise, teaching me the ropes. I had Deborah Gay, I had Carlotta, I had, they were sort of, as they say, drag mothers sort of thing. And I was 5-foot midget, and they said, you'll never be a showgirl, but, you've got presence, you've got stage presence and all that. You'll never be, dazzling showgirl, but you have a presence. So that will get you far, is the presence and your stage presence.
Is it easier now to get work, or was it easier before? I mean, we see all these shows on television, like...
The only thing I'm very disappointed in is that the fact that when I was growing up and doing, Carlotta's show and Deborah's Lay Girls and that stuff, there was a lot of trans showgirls. And there's that aspect and that degree of, like, when we did the shows, in all the regional towns of, every state, they would we'd come out and they go, wow, because they'd never actually seen, trans before. And they think, made very aware that, we used to be men. Now we've got tits and all that stuff. They're just mesmerised by the beauty. They just think, well, how's it possible? But it is possible. But I find there's not many around today, and that tradition needs to be carried on. You know what I mean? A lot of people are not interested anymore. You have the drag world, like RuPaul's Drag World, and even drag's improved over the years. You look back to the old exchange days, and drag's changed so much. But I found trans showgirls has died off.
What would it take to open the House of Minogue?
It would probably have a lot of things in it. It'd be part sex shop, part boutique, part cosmetics.
Would you need funding, support? Like, what is missing for those initiatives?
Well, to put on a show like, say, like the Pokey shows and Carlotta Lay Girls and Beautiful Boys, it would cost a fortune in today's world. Everything's got so much more expensive. It's easy accessible. Like you can go 4 meters of material and you can send it overseas in 2 weeks' time. It's come back fully beaded. You don't have to get Nana to do it, for the next 4-5 months sort of thing. So it's a very hard thing to put together nowadays. I want to put a production show and find some trans girls and keep that tradition going. But yeah, the funding's just too expensive.
Mama, what do we need in the art scene?
What a nice, easy question. What does the art scene need? I think what's really interesting about the arts and the performing arts in terms of equality and pride and queer people and people of colour and anyone who's been minoritized. And I always like to say minoritized with a D on the end, not minorities, because we're actually not in the minority, but we have been treated that way by those in power. And I think in the arts, and, as Sasha said, it's true in sex work as well, and it's also true in sports, those are the arenas where minoritized people can find undeniable success. And it's an uphill battle because existing as a minoritized person always is. But in the arts, in sports, in sex work, we can find success, we can find careers, because those are arenas traditionally where our excellence becomes undeniable at a certain point, and I grew up with my father telling me about some of the amazing royalty of Black America and saying, look at how you can be treated this way in the street, but then you're Muhammad Ali. and you are the world champion, and that is undeniable, something's going on in sports and the arts and other arenas like this that are not what people think of as normal life, but where our excellence cannot be denied. And then suddenly we get visibility and we get respect and we get money. But the arts is such a precarious place to make money. The pandemic decimated the arts industry. We have an under-supported funding structure for the arts where we have to compete with each other for small opportunities, and where it's very difficult to turn those small opportunities into something sustainable and long-term. It's project by project based. Funding has to be spent and allocated and acquitted towards that project in the lifespan of that project. And there's huge conversations amongst governments and funding bodies and grant bodies. How do we create a model where grants and funding empower to create sustainable long-term capacity building and employment? And no one's found a good answer. Lots of people talk about seed funding and investing and crypto, but sometimes that turns out to just be a kind of quicksand pit that you can never arise from, you know? So I think, you know, what I really want to say, and it is connected to this question, and before I say it though, so much respect to the generations of trans and non-trans showgirls and drag queens. I was having this conversation with an older trans lady the other day, because it's very difficult now how people think of drag as cisgender men in dresses dressing up, when actually the history of drag, yes, there are men, some of them even straight, if you can believe it, who have been incredible drag queens, but it was traditionally a safe space for trans women. Before we even had the language of transgender, we had, particularly in Sydney in the scene, people would say living in drag, because they were drag in real life, not just on the stage, in the safe space of the stage. That is like our queer church, you know, the stage. But we do, so I agree, you know, drag and trans used to be like this, and something happened along the way, but actually it's our temple. But I think what I really want to say, and it answers several of the questions, it talks to the human rights, it talks to why are certain privileged groups not turning up to protest for the rights of others. There's a confusion in our society about equality and normality. We want to all be equal as human beings, and we want to be seen as human beings. That's different from being normal. And if you have that confused and you're trying to be as normal as possible, once you've won the rights and dignities and equalities you want for yourself, you're in the norm and you're in the majority, and you're going to go over there and sit with them and be quiet when someone else is being stomped on. What we need in our society in this world is nothing less than a completely radical mind shift, a paradigm shift, that equality is not about all of us becoming normal. It's about recognizing that every single person is not normal. There's no normal. We are diverse in beautiful differences. And even the people who like to think of themselves as normal, whether that's because of their racial privilege because they're white, whether it's because of their economic privilege because they're upper middle class, whether it's because of gendered privilege, sex-based privilege, whatever it is, ability, everything. But they're also not normal. Everyone has a completely unique experience of their own lived experience and circumstances. So once we uncouple the idea that equally human is not the same as normal, we're going to come a long way in changing these things.
For a lot of us that have dual identity, like, you know, half of my soul is in Greece and half of it is here. And in Greece, when I get homophobic comments, and trust me, there's like hundreds of them on my TikTok every day, they call me abnormal. So that's the word. And for me, Australia is a safe place. So for a lot of people that share, I don't know about you, Eva, how it was coming here as a refugee, but this is safe with all its disadvantages, with all its problems, you know. And thank you to everyone that's contributing, but it does become our safe place. So I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that maybe not in every part of Australia, but I feel safe right now to wear my pearls and invite my friends and create content and show it to the world and to my family back in Greece. But I would have never done that if I lived there. So that's what I want to give shout out to. Annie, you are just blowing up, right? Melbourne comedy shows, like it's a bright career for you. How did you do it within the pandemic? What was easy and what was hard for you?
I think the hardest thing was that I was not recognised as an actual business back then. So I was earning less than $75,000. So you actually couldn't get any help from the government that legitimate businesses were getting, but we were the ones that needed it the most. And I was like nodding along to everything that you were saying, Mama Alto, about grants. We're all fighting for the same grants and we all have to tick different boxes. And so you become, you have to just try and tick as many boxes as possible. And then at the same time, I was going through the struggle of like, but I don't want to tick any boxes. I don't want to be paraded around as like, look at this quota that we've met or the figures that our organisation is doing so well in. So I think it was something that I'm glad I had prepared for even in the year before, in 2019, when I quit my day job. So it was like I had a whole year where I got no work, even though everything was normal. No one wanted to hire me because they didn't know who the hell I was. So I had to go through that struggle of, I need to go out and I need to hustle and do as much unpaid work as possible. And that's when I got the TAFE degree, became a celebrant, and that was a way of making my own money and supporting myself and having control of that, even though all the weddings got postponed. But it was like an investment in the future. So now it's come back. So now I'm setting myself up for a long-term career because I know I want to be in the arts for the rest of my life. And I think I'm surprised that it's taken so long for people of colour like me. I was in high school going like, I want to be the next Lee Lin Chin. Like one of the first jokes I wrote, I told my family at the dinner table was that, I have to wait until Lee Lin Chin dies before I can get a job. And even though my dad's very conservative, he like nearly choked on his dinner and laughed. So I was like, okay, that's a good one. But now I'm doing work with ABC and I find that we're only just scratching at the surface of what you can see on television. So it's taken a lot longer than I thought, but hopefully, everyone in this room is helping us along by supporting the people that we see and going, we need more of that.
Todd, how do we support queer arts? What do you do at Equality to support queer arts? And what's next? Because it was 3 years of pause. We need more investment to kickstart that.
It's quite a nuanced question, and I'm trying to answer it the best that I can to give you insight into what happens within government land around when we receive grants. So within the equality space, we have the PEF grants, which is the Pride Events and Festivals Fund. And when I first started as commissioner, the applications weren't as numerous as they are now. In the last 3 years, every round, the applications have doubled. And the money hasn't gone up. And that's not because government aren't looking at investing more. It's that the choice that is happening for communities who now feel like their event or their festival or their program can be funded are applying, which is a great thing. So the challenge for me is to go back and figure out what is the next kind of phase of this fund and where is it that we take it, because communities are coming out from the pandemic and are wanting to create content in the most amazing ways. That said, during the pandemic, what was fascinating is the amount of pivoting that went on. I mean, we pivoted daily, particularly here in Melbourne, but nonetheless, it was great to see how much content went online, how much things were being created. But again, as we all probably felt for those that were living in Melbourne, it was tough.
Yes, it was just part of modern technology, and it's like, well, you can't go out and do a show, so you have to do it in your lounge room, and we'll hook it up and we'll just Zoom it. And it's a broader, audience because you've got people all over the world watching. And I found when I did my shows, Bar Kylie, we couldn't do them live. So there's a lot of people around the world that want to come and see the show, but they can't because they're over there, and their generosity was amazing. Like the tipping was like phenomenal. So everyone tipped, and people were saying hi from Argentina and all that sort of stuff, and it was just global work. And the first time ever, I'm standing in my lounge room and I've got a global audience. Like but it's fun.
As you know, the arts industry was definitely affected by COVID, probably more than any of the industries. It's going to take some time for the arts industry to rebuild. And I think also what we need to think about is that any form of art is normally, particularly mainstream art, is much more well-funded than queer arts or LGBTIQI arts. That's always been problematic. Arts needs to be funded, just like high arts, just like the ballet, and because we are artists all in our own rights, and we work in all different parts of the arts community. So we should be equally funded, just like all other mainstream arts.
Thank you, everyone, for thinking Pride with us. I'm Kyriakos Gold. Good night.